The base is dropped on a beautiful Thursday morning in Atlanta, GA, August 29th. SDH is live on a Thursday Thoughts edition of the show. These can go a little sideways and upside down and twisted around. That's what happens because you guys are driving the bus this morning. Tweet at us at Soccer Down Here. Let us know what your Thursday thoughts are. We've already got a couple big picture questions that we'll dig into as we go this morning. But, John, where do you want to start this morning? You call it.
Well, okay. We're looking at stuff that was going on with Transfers MLS and his thoughts on the awards as he perceives them, or as Transfers perceives them, since I cannot say if Transfers is a male or a female, but as Transfers MLS perceives their thoughts on the awards in the postseason, gave their number one and their number two in 6 different categories. And just looking at it from my perspective, I'm close, but I don't completely agree.
Okay. Coach of the Year is where Transfers, and this is at Transfers MLS, if you want to go check them out, check their post out. Coach of the Year, they went with Bob Bradley as number 1, Matias Almeida as number 2.
Completely and totally down with that. You know, obviously, you cannot ignore what LAFC has been doing this season on the pitch and off, and because of all of these markers, Bradley becomes that de facto. Matias Almeida, squad wasn't his. He's going in there, and you've seen what San Jose has done. And I know a lot of folks thought that coming into the season, San Jose was not going to be very good. But Matias Almeida has made them very good in a very competitive West. So I'm completely cool with 1 and 2.
Yeah, I would be tempted to flip it, but I think what LAFC is doing is just unprecedented. So Bradley gets the nod. If Almeida gets San Jose into like a number 2 finish in the Western Conference, I might revise that at the end. But right now, I think it has to be Bob Bradley and then Almeida. Beyond those two, who else would be on your short list?
Jim Curtin in Philly, obviously, with what they have done. And, you know, I would probably make a nod to Domi Torrent as well at NYCFC with what they have done. And then you're kind of sitting there, you know, you've got all that group in the West being what they are. But I think that for me, once again, Almeida being in that gaggle, separated by only a couple of points, because of that grouping, I've got San Jose as that number 2 there in the West. So I guess Jim Curtin would be the one that I would add to that grouping.
You forgot somebody.
Bruce Arena?
No.
Who did I forget? Well, duh. Frank DeBoer, hello.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we kind of forgot Frank DeBoer. That's bad.
I would
good morning.
Yeah, seriously.
I'm going to reach down and grab my Mountain Dew while you finish that particular topic.
Yes, you might have to run down to the store and grab a Kickstart. You might have to upgrade this morning. I would go Bradley 1, Almeida 2, DeBoer 3, Curtin 4, and I'm really close to – I'll go 5 as a split between Tarrant and Adrian Heath.
Mm-hmm.
I think Minnesota could push their way into that a little bit more. And I think the top 5, the bottom spot, it could go Heath. It could go Luchi Gonzalez if Dallas gets hot here at the end. There's a few different ways it could go. If Peter Vermes drags Sporting Kansas City into the playoffs, you have to consider him. So Bradley will win it, or Almeida if San Jose goes nuts here at the end. But the rest of the 5, that's kind of where my head's at. All right, newcomer of the year. Transfers MLS goes Cristian Espinoza of San Jose, Abear of NYCFC. I might flip that.
Yeah.
I'm a little more partial to Abear. Or Eber.
I had a third, yes. And I had a third that might push the number 2, but I think because of sample size, it might be stuck at number 3. I had Gustavo Bo from New England.
Yeah, no, he could be in that conversation for sure. Alejandro Pozuelo's got to be in that conversation as well.
Yeah.
I might. Jamero Montero from Philadelphia is in that conversation. Jan Gregush is in that conversation. This is a tough one. This is a tougher one than I thought it was, looking at it. I would lean at the moment, and this one's definitely still up for grabs. I would lean at the moment to Eber as the number 1. I think I'm going to go Pozuelo as the 2. Oh.
Okay.
No, I'm not. I'm going to go Jan Gregush as the 2. I really like Gregush with Minnesota. I don't think he gets a lot of respect because he's part of that Holding Midfielders Appreciation Society.
There you go.
He's not scoring a bunch of goals, but Gregush, outstanding player. Carlos Heel, 9 goals and 10 assists. You got to think about him in that conversation as well. Oh, wow. This is a really difficult one. If Orlando gets into the playoffs, you got to talk about Nani.
Yeah.
I'm going to go Eber and Gregush right now, but that award is the most up for grabs.
Okay. Yeah, I had Eber as number 1, and I was looking at Bo, and I guess because of the recency factor, that was why I had him and not Carlos Heel, and they both should be in the discussion. So that was why I had Bo at 2, regardless of sample size, and Eber number 1.
Okay. Montero could play his way into that. Nani could play his way into that. Brian Fernandez could play his way into this conversation as well. Yeah, there's a lot of different options. This is one that's going to go down to the wire. Goalkeeper of the year. Transfers MLS goes with Brad Gazan as number 1, Bill Hamid as number 2. What say you?
I agree with the 1. The number 2 had me kind of stumped. I mean, because if you look, I know that Bill Hamid, is keeping DC United in 5th, and he's given up only 38 goals this season. But then if you want to do something like that, you have to look at Raimondo at RSL because he's given up 4 goals less and he's played more. I was going to say you could do the same thing with Sean Johnson, but he hasn't been there because of international duty, and Stuver has been there as well. And I don't know if you can necessarily give a team award. But I had Gazan as number 1 and number 1B, and number 2. I'm kind of like, I think for me, it's there's a space there, and for me, it would have been somebody like a Raimondo or a Sean Johnson before Bill Hamid.
Bill Hamid has stood on his head. I know some people are going to throw things. He's done that quite a bit this year. He's kept DC afloat. He's definitely in the mix. If Maxime Crépeau wasn't on such a bad team, he would be in that mix because he's been outstanding at times. Tyler Miller's been really good at times, but he's also had some games where I'm kind of like, Brian Rowe is a bit of an underdog candidate here with Orlando.
Yeah.
As really solidifying what was a bad defense last year and helping it improve. If Atlanta does what they have been doing in terms of defense and clean sheets, it's Brad Gazan, and there's just really a huge gap between one and the rest of the field.
Yeah. And that was why I had that gap. I'm like, okay, Gazan, is there a 2? It might be like down the road a little bit, but yeah, I had Gazan and everybody else.
Okay. Defender of the year. Transfers MLS goes with Ike Opara as the number 1, Miles Robinson as the number 2.
I had that flipped.
Okay.
I mean, you think about what Miles has done and how far he has come. as the Ed Reed of MLS. And I'll go ahead and use Chris Kirksey's analogy for now. Think about where Miles Robinson was 18 months ago and where he is today, and what he's able to do. And you're looking at locking down folks and closing speed and making sure that things happen and finally getting the nod that he deserves. Not disputing what Ike Opara can be for Minnesota and what he's been a part of in getting Minnesota where they are. But for me, it is Miles number one and Ike Opara number two.
I'm good with that. Miles is the number one for me. Opara is two. I think beyond that, one who has not been credited enough but should be this season is Ryan Hollingshead for Dallas, playing on the outside. Yeah. He does play in the midfield some, and that might take him out of this consideration for a lot of people. But Hollingshead has been outstanding this season. Opara's teammate Roman Metanire as a right back should be in the conversation. Maxime Chanot for NYC would be in the mix for me. Trying to think if there's anybody else. Zimmerman would get some votes. Jack Elliott for Philadelphia should get some votes. Elliott was a guy that a lot of people wrote off with the rise of Mark McKenzie and Austin Trusty, and Elliott has kept his starting spot all season long, and he's been really, really good. Anton Tinnerholm would be another one that I would probably have in the mix, but Robinson 1, Opara 2, and then going beyond that, I would probably go Chanot, Hollingshead, Metanire would be my top five.
Yeah, I'm there. I'm right there with you. I'll take that 5 and run.
Okay, comeback player of the year, which is a little nebulous. Transfers MLS goes with Pedro Santos as the 1, Chris Wondolowski as the 2. I'll disagree with Wondolowski completely because I don't think there's a comeback when you have double-digit goals.
I was going to say, what did he come back from?
Just being Chris Wondolowski and not getting respect, I guess. He had double-digit goals last year, so I don't think you can really put him in that conversation. Who else would be on the list for you?
I honestly don't know.
Okay.
Just because, for me, I'm like, all right, comeback player of the year. I looked at that and I saw Wando, and I'm like, why is Wando there? And it just kind of, it didn't make a whole lot of sense for me that to have him on that list. And when you're looking at, and I'm literally, what I'm doing is I'm literally scrolling down teams in the standings, and I'm going, is there anybody who made a comeback here? Not necessarily. Is there anybody who made a comeback here? And that comeback term is just so nebulous. I mean, for me, it might be somebody like Ramondo. I mean, I might bring him back in the mix, but what's he coming back from? Because he's been as consistent as he's been for this long a period of time. So, I'm like, all right, comeback player of the year. I'm at a loss. I'm honestly at a loss of this. And so I guess by default, using transfers list, I'd go 1, and then Wando doesn't apply. So Santos for me.
Yeah, the award is given to someone who's coming back from an injury or a serious medical condition or a slump in their career. Last year, Jossie Zardes won it, which makes sense after the 2017 he had. Clint Dempsey won it in 2017, coming back from the heart condition. So you're talking about a player like that. Pedro Santos, I don't know if I would necessarily put him here because his first year in the league, he just struggled to get acclimated. I wouldn't put Wondolowski in it. When I start kind of going through people that could fall into this, Mark Anthony Kaye's name came up to me with his injury last season, and he missed the second half and the stretch run, came back from the broken foot. So maybe. I don't know if that's a significant enough injury to get into that mix. I'm trying to think of who else could fall into this. K is the one that jumps out to me more than anybody else at the moment, but might need to do a little bit of digging on this one and see who else could fall in this category. I just don't think Santos is exactly what they're looking for here. He just didn't have a good first year in the league.
And then putting Wando in there for me, for someone
it's a
who's
tough
done
one to define. I mean, relax. It's a tough one to define, and I don't know if the definitions of it are truly well known. I'm not worried about the two suggestions that Transfers MLS put here. I don't know any better ones off the top of my head, so I'm not going to throw shade. K would probably be the one who has played outstanding this year and did have a season-ending injury last year.
Jared has a suggestion.
Okay.
Justin Meram.
Yep, and he'd be a really good consideration. He would probably be in this mix.
Yes.
I don't think he beats out Mark Anthony K if K is considered, because K has been best 11 quality this season. But yeah, he would be in that conversation. He would make a lot of sense. Talk about coming back from poor form, kind of Jossie Zardes-esque. That would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, no, I like that one. So, yeah, Meram to me is a definite add to this list, whatever it classifies itself as.
All right, and then MVP. Transfers MLS, Carlos Vela, number 1. Number 2, a tie, Joseph Martinez, Zlatan Ibrahimovic.
I'd go with those at 1, 2, 3. I have zero qualm about that list, but I would go 1, 2, 3 instead of 1, 2A and 2B.
Yeah, it's hard to go any different than that. So Vela 1 with the year he's having, 2 Joseph, 3 Zlatan. And if they got flipped, I'm not going to scream about it, because Zlatan carries the Galaxy on his back and then drags the rest of the team along in a sidecar. So that's where they're at. I get that if he ends up 2 instead of Joseph 3, that's fine. Other guys who were kind of under the radar a little bit that would normally be in this conversation but won't be this year because of the quality of those 3. Shabilko with Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Atuesta with Los Angeles. Rossi with LAFC. I mean, people are forgetting that Diego Rossi has 14 goals.
Mm-hmm.
Ladero, as always, with Seattle. Heel, especially if the Revs get into the playoffs, so he goes double-digit goals and assists. There's been some really big performances in the league this year, but those 3 have definitely overshadowed everyone else.
Yeah, but I also do like the names that you've added to the discussion. If we're talking like a top 10s that could shift things one way or the other, but no, that's honestly a hell of a list.
So then, best 11, which Transfers MLS did not do. Roughly from what we've had, you would go Brad Gazan in goal. You would have Opara, Robinson. I'd probably throw Chanot into that.
Yeah,
as my 3 defenders on it. My front 3 would be Vela, Joseph, Zlatan. So then you're picking 4 midfielders. I would have Gregush, Atuesta.
Yeah.
Pozuelo and Lodero is probably where my head's at right now.
Yeah.
Maxi Morales is going to fight for that spot.
Yeah.
Michael Barrios is going to fight for that spot. Diego Valeri's in the mix. But yeah, I would go with 2 holding midfielders with Atuesta and Gregush, because I think they've been that good this season. But if you drop one and go Valeri or Maxi Morales, I'm not going to fight you.
Well, but think about the list that you just gave, whether holding midfielders appreciation society or not. All of the midfielders that you're having to squeeze into that best 11, and you're rattling off names, and you're still rattling off names, and you rattled off a lot of names. Just the embarrassment of riches in the midfield in MLS this year.
Yeah, no, it's been, again, when you start looking at the overall level and digging into this, the league is better than it's ever been. And when you're going, deeper into a best 11 or a second team, and you've still got names upon names upon names, I mean, that's leaving Shabilko, Kay, Rossi, Jamiro Montero. That's leaving them out of the conversation. Latif Blessing, who's had a great season. Christian Espinoza, great season for San Jose. Jonathan Dos Santos has been very good for the LA Galaxy. There's a lot of players in this league that have raised this level. So we will see where these awards fall. If you have suggestions on the awards, please share them with us on Twitter at @SoccerDownHere. We're going to take a quick break. Be right back after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here, August 29th. Thursday Thoughts edition of the show. You guys have thoughts. We might have some thoughts in relation to your thoughts. What are people saying on the Twitters?
A lot of folks are getting into the scheduling, at least early returns last night. Bartimus Prime says, I find it incredibly curious that NYCFC has a long cross-country trip to Vancouver 3 days after Vancouver has a cross-country trip to Montreal. MLS scheduling strikes again, #Thursday Thoughts.
Yeah, it's just bonkers. Scheduling's really hard. If you've never done it, it's really difficult when you're dealing with a team like NYC, for example, who doesn't have complete control over their venue. So you've got like X number of dates that you've got to drop teams into and make it fit and make sure they've got what they need. And it's a mess. It's a puzzle that all the pieces don't exactly fit the right way. That's especially NYC's case. I still think it could be better. I think at times there's some things that the league does in terms of scheduling that I just don't understand. And hopefully it continues to get better, because this year has felt like the worst one that I can remember in recent years. And maybe it's just because it's condensed. Maybe it's because of the additional midweek games, because of moving MLS Cup up. Maybe it won't be quite as bad next year with moving the start of the season up a bit. I don't know. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Fingers crossed. And other folks, Four-Card Ahmed about the scheduling, but it's about the postseason. He goes, #well past Wednesday afternoon / early Thursday thought. Are MLS officials / schedule makers this dumb ? Conference finals on Tuesday, Wednesday.
I don't mind conference finals being on Tuesday, Wednesday. I know that this has been an issue in different years where they've done this. If I remember correctly, on the TV side of it, on the ratings side, there hasn't been an effect. It's if it's on a Tuesday, Wednesday, if it's a Monday, Tuesday, if it's midweek versus weekend, it's been the same. So, and I think for a game like that, it's not going to affect attendance either. So, if it gets you into a better national TV window, I'm okay with it, especially for a conference final. I don't have too big of an issue with it. What about you?
No, and I'm looking at it specifically from the TV perspective, because as a national rights holder, what you're going to do is put something in a spot where it's by itself or in a non-competitive spot where you think that you can get the biggest ratings out of the deal. So I understand the rationale behind it. I know that when it comes to those of us who want to go to these matches, you've got to kind of work your way around your work schedules and everything else at home that you would normally do during a week. But I completely understand putting these games in these spots, especially if in the mind of the rights holder, you have the past evidence where, yeah, okay, we did this, ratings were X, our expectations were Y, expectations were either met or surpassed, so we're going to continue to do it until our evidence changes, and then we don't get the return that we're looking for from the TV side. And the other news that came out yesterday, MLS Cup's going to be on ABC this year.
Yeah, it's been there before. That's a good thing. I know it's on a Sunday during NFL, which is not ideal, but I think it'll be fine. When they've had it versus other big games, they had it versus SEC Championship before. TV ratings didn't change dramatically based off of that. I think ABC and the wider availability could increase the TV ratings. When you work from the beginning, it's October 19th and October 20th. Those are the first games of the postseason. That's round one. There will be 6 games in total. 2 games on Saturday, October 19th. Those will be on Univision and TUDN. October 20th, 4 games, 2 on FS1 and Fox Deportes, 1 on ESPN and ESPN Deportes, the other on ESPN2 and ESPN Deportes. Then you get into the semifinal round, and it's just a few days later, Wednesday, October 23rd, 2 games, FS1, Fox Deportes. Thursday, October 24th, 2 games, ESPN, ESPN2, ESPN Deportes will be your channels for those. Then the conference final, it is Tuesday, Wednesday, as opposed to straight up Saturday, Sunday. October 29th, 1 game. October 30th, 1 game. And then MLS Cup, you have a week and a half before the November 10th final. TV had to play a role here. Also, contracts had to play a role. For example, 2 games exclusively in Spanish language on Univision and TUDN. Maybe John will figure out how to use the SAP function by then. Probably
doubtful.
Not. Yeah, probably not. He'll be watching on Twitter.
And
There you go.
I'll just watch on TUDN and not use the SAP.
Or you can do that. We'll get more into all of this and other stuff from you guys on a Thursday Thoughts edition later in the show. But up next, Felipe Cardenas from The Athletic joins us. We'll be right back.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinsky of Apolinsky and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here. Efforting Felipe Cardenas. He's a busy man, by the way.
Yes.
We are trying to get on Felipe's schedule, which we had arranged about 10 minutes before, but maybe things have happened. So stay tuned on Felipe. He might just jump into the middle of the show.
Yeah, for really?
It could happen. He might just pop up and say, hey, I heard what you just said. He hasn't done it yet, though. All right, we'll go back to Twitter while we're waiting on Felipe. What else do we have on the Twitters?
Cairo with Thursday Thoughts using the hashtag. The next step in Atlanta United ascension is the ability to step on teams' throats and kill matches. Up 2 versus Portland, Minnesota, and NYCFC. They couldn't find the goal to end it as a competition early and had to gut out 90 minutes. Hashtag Unite and Conquer.
There's some differences in those. I mean, Portland is different because you've got a 2-goal lead. I think a 2-goal lead, it's hard to complain about. Now, when it's 2-1, it's different. Or when it's 1-0, it's a little different. Also, taking advantage of big runs of form as well, like Minnesota, for example, where you play so well early. Felt like maybe there could have been a third goal there to put it away early, and you weren't able to find it. That allowed Minnesota to come back into it. That's a little bit different flow. Portland I would leave out of the conversation, honestly. It's a little twofold. I mean, being able to gut matches out is a great thing. Being able to grind matches out, you're going to need that. You're going to need that ability. You're going to have to do that sometimes. So, cool. Going to have to be able to have that ability. But also, yeah, I agree, where in the past we saw where this team would just run teams out of the building at times, and you didn't have to gut games out. You didn't know if they could, and they showed that they could in the postseason. This year, I feel fine about either way. I think they can run teams out of the building. And here comes Felipe Cardenas joining.
Atta boy.
What's up, Felipe?
Hey, hold on a second.
One second. All right. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Here we go.
The
I'm here.
SDH Nation can hear you.
Good morning, SDH Nation. Happy Thursday.
We're a nation.
We're trying to call it a nation. I don't know. Maybe it's a nation. Maybe it's a village. I don't know.
It's all good.
It's all good. The question on the floor before we get into it with you, Felipe, is repeat it from Cairo, John.
Okay. The next step in Atlanta United ascension is the ability to step on teams' throats and kill matches. Up 2 versus Portland, Minnesota, and NYCFC. They couldn't find the goal to end it as a competition early and had to gut out 90 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a I don't want to say a loaded question, but it is a question that doesn't have one simple answer, because I think they're finding the chances. They haven't been clinical. So it isn't a case of them not knowing what to do or simply sitting back once they have a lead. Although they have done that this season, there have been times where, when they were still trying to find kind of balance, being the conservative and being attacking and being aggressive, there are times where they would go up 1-0, even at home, or really early in the season, and they would kind of look like they would sit back and protect that lead. But I don't think that's the case now. I think they have been very aggressive in how they want to defeat teams. I think they're back to that mentality of, the quicker we can do these guys in, the easier it's going to be for us. But they just haven't been clinical in front of the net. And there's fatigue as well. I think all the players, not all of them, but like most of the players after, the ones that we spoke with after the U.S. Open Cup, were pretty clear that they are tired. That they've been playing a lot of games. Again, this is a really new situation for them. 2019, even though they knew coming into the season that there were going to be more matches, their bodies are adjusting, their minds are adjusting to that. So I don't know if we can categorize it as something like, hey, when their next step is doing that. Because they're still very capable of doing it. So I think, let's say in their next match against Philadelphia, that happens to be the case. I mean, are we going to start saying, oh, okay, so now they've checked that box, they can, put teams away? I think one game isn't enough to answer that question, because, this is MLS. I think we know what MLS does to even good teams, especially when they play away from their own stadium. So are they capable of doing it? Yeah, I think you're starting to see that. But can they fight through, the fatigue that's starting to accumulate, and take on teams like Philadelphia, and really anyone that plays Atlanta United looks at that match as one of the biggest matches of their year. So it's something to consider. Quickly, speaking of fatigue and that, being able to work through that. Joseph Martinez told us after the Open Cup match, that against Orlando, his body was telling him to stop playing and his mind was telling him to keep going. So it's real. These guys are tired, and I think when you add the elements of what Orlando was like that night, and the pitch and the heat, they're starting to, they're looking for that extra gear. I think they found that against Minnesota when they were down 10 men with 15 minutes to go.
Yeah, it's been a wild last few, maybe 6 weeks with this group, with the schedule, with the different types of competition, with the Open Cup, with Club America and Campeones Cup, and just league play. And now you've got one more time out before you do get to catch your breath for a while. This Philadelphia game is far trickier than I think it might appear to be on first glance.
Of course it is, because it's, first of all, just the intangibles of the match. It's a top of the table clash. It's really, it's two teams that are coming from two very different philosophies as organizations. So there are a lot of storylines there. Is Philadelphia really the best team in the East? I think most people would say no, that Atlanta United is still, top to bottom, even just roster wise and talent wise, the best team. But, Philadelphia has, they're very solid. I think they have a very good coach, and I think they have a very good team mentality that they've really adapted and embraced their new style of play. Which is more flexible now than it has been in the past. It's one that is aggressive when they want it to be. I think they're a veteran team that can read games well. They start out in different formations. They'll start out in a diamond or a 4-4-2 or a 4-2-3-1, and they're very comfortable moving that formation, that shape around, depending on what the opponent is giving them, or depending on what they want to do as far as tempo in that match. And so I think that makes them a dangerous team. I don't think they've really feared Atlanta United either. And it's turning into, I think one of the biggest games of their club's, 10-year history. So all that is going on really in the pregame, and then on the field, they have some dangerous players. I think it's too bad that Bedoya won't play. I think he's going to be missed because he's so crucial to the way that the midfield plays. And he's one of those players that does a lot that you don't see, but he allows players around him to be in better positions. He gives attacking players, the freedom or the service that they need, especially in the final third around the box. And when he has a chance, he takes it. So other than just wearing the armband, I think Alejandro Bedoya will be extremely missed. I'm sure he hasn't slept since that second yellow that he got, or that the yellow that suspended him for this match, because I think that whole organization has been pointing to this game for the last probably month, knowing that they're going to be facing Atlanta United while still, battling for first place.
When it comes to other guys, and I know that we can get into the Medunjanin and Bedoya relationship a little bit and how Medunjanin is probably going to be affected by not having Ale out there. In the first segment of the show, we were talking about transfer MLS and the awards as they saw them to this point of the season. And one of them was newcomer. And because of that, I wanted to get your breakdown and just your thoughts in general on a guy like Kasper Shabilko, who has come in and given instant dividends for Jim Curtin. And for me, as a guy that has kind of flown below the radar a great deal in giving the output that he has, and I see him as one of the key cogs for Philadelphia this weekend.
Well, he's going to have to be, because now his role will be, intensified a little bit without Bedoya. But to be blunt, I don't know a lot about him. I don't follow Philadelphia that detailed to know what his expectations are from a tactical perspective. Obviously, he's been a good addition, and I think that's Philadelphia though. They have 11 guys, they have 13, 14 guys that believe in a specific philosophy and really a budding identity. Something that Alejandro Bedoya told me when we spoke in our interview is that, we don't have marquee names. That's not us, but we have 11 guys that believe in each other, believe in how we play. And I think that makes everyone very important. They don't look to one guy to solve problems for them, but they have guys that can do that. And so, it's really cliche. It's, next man up, but I think that they're that type of team. They've been, Philadelphia is one of those clubs that they're the complete opposite of Atlanta United as far as what they want to do as an organization. They invest more money in academy and a development than bringing in DPs. And that I think is starting to pay dividends. Again, I don't know if they can keep this up, if they can keep up with MLS 3.0, and are we going to see Philadelphia, top of the table in 2020, or perennially? I don't think so. I think they still need to add some players, but they have added certain players. Again, we haven't talked about it. I don't know if we're going to, but you have a guy like Ilsinho that is just this sleepy, very important game changer for them that can completely unbalance and destabilize any defensive system, no matter how prepared you are for a team. Sometimes it's specific, players that are, pretty, arrogant on the ball and want to attack and go 1v1 that can break teams down pretty easily.
Yeah, let's go big picture about Philadelphia. I want to follow up on a little bit of that. Philadelphia has chosen a different approach, and I think it's a fairly widely known fact that Philadelphia, from an ownership perspective, they just don't have the same level of resources that an Arthur Blank has or LAFC has or some of the other teams that are spending big have done. But they have invested a lot of money on the academy, as much as anybody else. They have a residential academy. They have a high school attached to their academy. They're doing some really groundbreaking things. Can you, in MLS 3.0, or maybe we're up to 3.5 now, can you compete with that strategy, but also adding players like Medunjanin, Shabilko, Jamiro Montero, not big names, but guys who can play and star in this league? Is that possible to be competitive and win an MLS Cup title in this MLS with this strategy?
I think that is the sweet spot. I think that is I would say the priority, the goal, the objective for even big clubs like Atlanta United and LAFC, the teams that are the biggest spending teams in the league. They would love to be able to maintain sort of, like a track record of bringing in big international stars that can make their team better and that fit their system and fit their club, but also on the side to continue to develop talent and create a legitimate pipeline. Not just talk about we have an academy and we're trying to bring in players. Like in a legitimate pipeline where you are starting, academy players that are brought up in the academy at 18, 19, 20, and playing meaningful minutes, at the MLS level. So, I think a lot of clubs would love to do what Philadelphia is doing and be competitive. You can look at FC Dallas. They're kind of the standard, but arguably Philadelphia for some has really the best setup, as like you mentioned, as far as their development, their academy goes with the high school and really the focus from a very top level of the club that, the front office is saying, this is what we believe in. This is where we're going to invest our money. So, I don't know the financials of a guy like Sugarman at Philadelphia. I do know that it's not a team that just doesn't have capital. I think they can spend if they wanted to. I think they're one of those teams that, and one of those ownership groups that is in between the 1.0, 2.0 MLS of like, we don't need to spend on, a lot on big players. They brought in Marco Fabian, which is, he was a guy that Tata Martino really missed at Gold Cup. He was going to be a key figure for Mexico at the Gold Cup, and his ankle injury kept him out. So, he's done well for Philadelphia when he's healthy. But, earlier, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, they had Philadelphia hosted a town hall with some of their fans, and it was Ernst Tanner and another member of the front office who his name is now escaping him. It wasn't Sugarman, it was the other, his number two. And they Ernst Tanner obviously coming from Germany, from if I'm not mistaken, kind of like the Leipzig academy system. So he believes in the young players. He also believes in a certain way of playing and being aggressive and being technical. But he's also this person that believes in, when he was asked by a fan, is Philadelphia going to be one of those teams that brings in a big time international? He was pretty blunt in saying no, maybe, not right now. It's just not what we're looking at. But he also said it doesn't mean we don't spend money. We just spend it in other places. So yeah, that is just the way that they like to do business. And I think they will always be fighting to stay at the top of their conference. But this is a good proof point for them, 2019, that hey, we can do this if we have the right pieces, if we all believe in this. It does have longevity.
And I think that, Felipe, that's the point, and we see this internationally. And when you have a league that is growing, as MLS is, you don't want to completely and totally just spend to bring in DPs and go back to the 2.0 model and take the growth of the league and the growth of your franchise, whoever it is, and go backwards. Because right now, I think that what you're seeing in Philadelphia is the idea that, okay, if we spend here and we spend here, instead of just needless spending, it's spending with thought. And I think that that's one of the things that a lot of folks can look at Philadelphia and sit there and say, okay, they're doing it their way and they're having their levels of success. And I think it is a model for working forward here when you're getting to MLS 3.0 and 3.5. There's a wiseness about it that in some other places you may not necessarily see.
Yeah, I think that's true, and I also believe that it's very interesting for what all this that we're discussing about Philadelphia, and then having a captain like Alejandro Bedoya that is so outspoken about and wanting to do the complete opposite. But he's not going into 2-footed tackles on his front office, but there is an indirect message from him that there are clubs around this league that need to catch up with the rest of MLS. I'm really, I don't want to say I'm devastated, but it's too bad he's not going to play on Saturday. But I'm going to reshare the article, the interview that I had with him, because I still think that regardless of him not being on the pitch, he is really the soul, heart and soul of the Philadelphia Union, and I believe that his play and his mentality has brought this team to where it is, and he fought through some bad spells with this team and a U.S. Open Cup loss last year. And he's back, fighting for this team to get up. But I think the other part is him, like what he believes is best for MLS, and it's not what his club agrees with basically. And so, he's a guy that doesn't, think that we need DPs. There should be, the salary cap should improve. There should be more more money for clubs to bring the players in that they want, and that players should have more freedom, and that free agency should be more compatible with this league and the players that are here. That's just part of it. Obviously, he's been very outspoken with his criticism of charter flights and how he believes that if MLS wants to be one of the best leagues in the world, which is whispered around, when the board of governors is together and even when Don Garber kind of gets in front of a mic, it's this North Star. But what he told me is like, how can we be the best league, one of the best leagues in the world, if we're not one of the best leagues in our own region? And so he's this person now in the ecosystem of MLS and the CBA and where this league is headed, that I think is going to be very important for the future, of Major League Soccer.
So we've got Felipe Cardenas for a few more minutes, and there's about 57 different things I want to ask you, so I'm going to have to pick wisely at this point.
I got mine picked.
All right, I'll ask you one more, John. I'll ask you one more before you get back to work. This league, you talk about where it wants to be, where it can be, and being one of the best in this region. And, there's Mexico, obviously, and that's going to be a major measuring stick for Major League Soccer and CONCACAF Champions League. And now we know Atlanta United will be part of it. When you look ahead to next year's CONCACAF Champions League and Club America and Tigres and Cruz Azul and León, those are the Mexican teams that have qualified. What kind of challenges do they present in your mind?
Well, I think what we saw from Club America in the match here in Atlanta is they're a very good team. I think just like individually, they have very good players at each position. Okay, I think that already is something that a lot of MLS teams just simply don't have. The type of quality at every position on the field. Their goalkeeper. Let's just start with the goal. We don't talk enough about goalkeepers, but Club America's goalkeeper is very good. Okay, he is very good, and he's probably not going to play much anymore because Memo Ochoa just signed. The first choice national team goalkeeper for Mexico, and Club America legend is going to play, and so that tells you the type of depth that they have and the type of quality that they have, the type of player that they go after. Their front three. There's a couple Colombians, there's an Ecuadorian. They can bring in young Mexican players. They've got Benedetti, another young Colombian that his future is pretty bright. But they had these attacking pieces that we don't see a lot in MLS. When players that really enjoy and seek 1v1 matchups. That's just rare in MLS, and they're very good at it. And I think we saw that. We saw some Atlanta United defenders really struggling when they were matched up 1v1. So I think that's the thing that MLS, even Atlanta United with the quality that they have, that's the gap, is that these teams are good. Okay. And you can catch them on a bad night, and you can play with them, and you can compete. But I still think that the big clubs in Liga MX, they're spending, they're starting to go outside of their own markets, and they're bringing in Uruguayan players and Argentine players and Colombians, and there some clubs are even really investing once again in their own academies and their young players. And I think Tata Martino is one of those guys that's been very vocal about the Mexican clubs needing to do that if they want Mexican soccer to grow. So I just think, like, top to bottom, they're still better than a lot of the MLS clubs, even the top MLS clubs that will be in the CONCACAF Champions League. So I think for MLS, it really comes down to preparation, because the schedule, the calendar isn't helping. And so now you need to prepare. You need to prepare ahead of time. You need to do things that may be unorthodox to as a manager, to the way that you want to prepare and condition your team, because you're not going to have a lot of time. And it's becoming a bigger priority, this tournament, for a lot of clubs. So I think the danger that these clubs present is just the talent, and then you couple that with MLS teams coming in cold into the tournament, and it just doesn't set up well for MLS.
All right, when you and I sat down and broke bread at the U.S. Open Cup final, you had a disagreement, I believe, with those of us here on a daily basis over a particular food and a discussion over said food that has been happening over the last couple of weeks. What is this disagreement that you have over food, sir?
Well, I'm going to clarify because it's not over food. It's over a fast food establishment that I felt was getting a lot of shade on this show.
Whoa!
And I was on my way back from training. I was listening to the show on my app podcatcher, and I couldn't believe that you guys went, and I think it was Jason, really went hard on Fazoli's. I was heartbroken.
Wow, you're a Fazoli's OG, huh?
Oh my gosh, so OG. That was my spot in high school. That is a Midwestern Italian fast food staple. And we don't have to talk about quality. My palate wasn't.
That's probably
my palate
for the best.
at the time. Yeah, my palate was not as cultured as it is now, and now I consider myself a legitimate foodie. But at the time, I just liked breadsticks and baked ziti, even if it was cheap. And so, yeah, I will go. I'll fight on that hill. I'll die on the hill for Fazoli.
As long as you scoop from the center of the plate and aren't stuck with the stuff on the outside that is perpetually overcooked. I see your point.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been back in double-digit years probably, but
nothing's changed.
Oh man, that was my spot in high school. It was one of those places where, hey, you need to load up on carbs before a big game, and that was my spot. And I think that was the only thing I would order. I would walk in and say, "Baked ziti, give me that baked ziti." It's always hook it up.
The safest thing to order too.
Yeah, it was okay. It was okay, but that's my jam. I might have to go back to Indiana and have it and selfie that in front of, and send it to SDH Nation.
There you go.
See, no, I can respect it. I mean, as long as you're not going to come on and argue that it's amazing quality. Okay, cool.
No, I can't. Yeah. I can't do that.
Yeah, nobody could do that.
No,
you have
credibility. But it hit the spot.
Yeah,
yes.
It hit the spot.
It's like Crystal at 3:00 in the morning.
Yeah, no, that's actually
when you
a
gotta
really
have
comparison. Crystal is not
you
good.
You gotta have it
at certain times. Okay, it'll do the trick.
And Waffle they would have, House. In South Bend, Indiana, where I grew up, it would be this like lovely, kind of older woman, kind of grandma working at Fazoli's that would just walk by your table and say, "Would you like some more breadsticks?" And it's like, yes, of course. Yes. And they're in this like hot basket, covered with some kind of, like a cloth that just like keeps them hot. And she's like, "How about another one?" Yeah, okay, I'll have another. I'll have 3 breadsticks. Sure.
The breadsticks were probably the saving grace at Fazoli's.
Yeah, for sure.
Fazoli's OG, Felipe Cardenas.
I like
That's
it.
me. Proud of it.
All right, other than sharing your love of Fazoli's, what else do you have coming up over at The Athletic?
A lot of stuff in the next few weeks. Today I'm hoping to file an Atlanta United story. We'll see when it comes out. Possibly, I'm going to try to see if they can get that published by tomorrow. But it's kind of a good look at this team. Not so much tactically, but where they're going. What the makeup of this team is, really, even psychologically. So going deep on that. And today I'll be sitting with an unnamed Atlanta United player for a future one-on-one that I'm going to be working on over the weekend as well. And yeah, MLS as well. I'll be talking to a big-name MLS coach this afternoon for a story, for a much bigger story. This is going to be one of those that's going to take me a while to track people down and get, but I got this guy. And he, one of his former teams just qualified for the Copa Libertadores semifinal. So there's the hint.
Very nice. I like hearing from the managers. That's exciting. Looking forward to that one.
Yep.
All right, Felipe, thank you as always. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, guys. Take it easy. Take care.
You too. We're going to take a quick break, come back, and more Thursday thoughts from the listeners right after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Apollinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here. It's not October yet. It's August. I'm sleepy. I need to go to sleep. August 29th. You both, brother. I did learn during the break that there are 4 Fazoli's locations in the state of Georgia.
Yep.
Nothing near Atlanta. If Felipe wants to go get some of those breadsticks, he's got to drive down to Macon. That's the closest one. There's one in Columbus.
Okay.
There's one in Fort Oglethorpe. And there is one in Bon Air.
Okay. So I know
Bon Air
the one
location blows my mind. There's also one on the other side of the state line in Chattanooga.
Yeah, the one in Fort Oglethorpe, I know where that one is. That's on the Battlefield Parkway.
That is correct.
On the main drag, as you're heading into Fort O, coming off of 75, you come down into the valley, and they have that stretch of strip malls and stores, and the Fazoli's there. As you're heading into Fort O, it's on the left-hand side of the street, and I think it's in a strip mall location near a Walmart, so it's got a lot of parking.
All right, so next time you're in Macon or Columbus or Fort Oglethorpe or Bon Air, you can visit a Fazoli's in the state of Georgia.
One in Bibb County, one in Houston County.
There you go.
And Ricky Ricardo, by the way, says he moved to Macon at the age of 6, lived there for 2 years. Fazoli's is a cult classic, and as a kid, it was awesome. When I saw a couple of years ago, they brought it back to Macon. Definitely went on a nostalgia trip. And for the record, Daniel Price, I was not bashing Waffle House. I was just saying that when you're in the mood for it, that is a place that you go like a crystal. Under no circumstance would I ever bash the waffle.
I'm glad I missed that because I would have probably been still yelling about bashing Waffle House.
No, that was no bashing of Waffle House because I'm the first guy that will go there at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. As you and I both can attest, when we suggest going to Waffle House, we go to Waffle
3 o'clock in the afternoon. I have no problem with the Waffle House at any time.
Zero. For me, triple order hash browns plain or with a grilled cheese wheat on 2. But that's the thing. If I get the grilled cheese sandwiches, then I get the full. I just get the full triple order of hash browns because I know I can finish all of it. If I don't get the sandwiches, then I go triple order hash browns, scattered, smothered, covered, chunked, and topped, and nothing else.
Okay, I was about to say, because I was just going to throw it out there that is anyone surprised that John's go-to order would be grilled cheese and a triple order of plain hash browns?
If I'm going to finish my plate, then I go plain. Yeah. Then if I know that I don't want the sandwiches, then I throw everything on the hash browns and just get the hash browns because that's a meal in and of itself.
Oh, no, it definitely is. Just saying.
And now Tafka may have to go and try this Fazoli's that we speak of. 5 minutes from his house, and he's never had it.
Yeah, you gotta go try it. I mean, it's not as bad as we make it out to be. It's just Italian fast food is a difficult thing to do. It's not something that's easily fast food, just ability to be served and done properly. So the baked ziti is a safe bet. That is definitely the go-to. And the breadsticks are really good. I can remember those. I can support that.
Yeah. And Daniel Price is now asking if we've tried the grilled chicken at the Waffle House. He says that stuff is like cocaine, and he's not surprised that I'm old.
Yes, I have not had the grilled chicken at Waffle House. I'm pretty traditional at Waffle House. I mean, depending on what time of day. Like, if it's breakfast, I'll go with one of the sausage sandwiches. If it's lunch or dinner, I usually go patty melt and hash browns. And if I just want hash browns, then I'll load it up. But if not, then it's scattered, smothered, and topped is usually where I'll go with it. Or scattered, smothered, and chunked sometimes.
Yeah, for me, it's just absolutely loaded up and all over the place. Yeah, no sandwich, loaded up, have it as a meal, have it as a second meal because I sure as heck do not complete it the first time through.
What else we got on the Twitters?
We have a lot of soccer discussion, by the way.
Good.
All right. Getting back to the discussion that we had from at Transfers MLS in the first hour, Percy Herrera, lull at thinking Opara has been better than Miles. Miram instead of Santos. Brian Fernandez is the newcomer, and I'd throw Gonzalez or Crépeau in the mix for goalkeeper. Guzan should not be up there.
I disagree on Guzan. I think he has to be with the potential for setting a record for clean sheets. And no, it's not all Brad, but it's kind of hard not to have him in that conversation. Newcomer of the year, I think, is a complete and utter toss-up right now. It's really going to come down to how people finish. Brian Fernandez would be on the short list for me, but Eber is the guy at this point, in my opinion. Comeback player of the year, it's not Santos for me because he just didn't play well. There's a few different directions you could go. Mark Anthony Kaye is probably where I'm headed just because he had a season-ending injury last year and he's gotten better in 2019. I agree about Opara. I think Ike Opara has been good. He's had a couple of bad games against Atlanta, and that might skew you a little bit. But he's been really good for Minnesota. Miles has just been better.
Thomas Gwynn says, Bear for newcomer, the difference between him in the lineup and him out is ridiculous.
Yeah, he is such a talented player. I mean, he is that goal he scored against Red Bulls, that might win him the award by itself. It was that good. He is a special one, and Mitrita might be the one that's a little more talented, and I think ultimately will have a huge impact. But Eber has taken NYC from being a team that was kind of trying to find their way early on to a cup contender, because I think they are. I think when they're in their 3-4-3, and this is something that Dome Toronto's going to have to figure out with James Sands injured, the 3-4-3 with Maxi Morales, with Mitrita, with Eber, with Valentin Castellanos, that's dangerous. And then you get Anton Tinnerholm and Ronald Matarrita bombing forward as wingbacks. Alexander Ring, one of the best central midfielders in the league. That is a cup contending team right there. And a lot of it is down to Eber.
Also on the board, Lewis Martin on his Thursday thoughts. He says he's heard national guys talking about Miles Robinson, pointing out his passing from the back was not the best. Then Matt Doyle explained how it's vastly improved. Can you go deep into how Miles has improved in his passing? I'm trying to learn the game better.
He's just more comfortable with the ball at his feet. And I think the national guys who are saying his passing isn't good enough are guys who aren't paying close attention. They're not watching this team day in and day out. They're going by what others have said over the years. Miles probably didn't get into the Tata Martino teams more because of that, because he just wasn't a player that was comfortable on the ball at that point. I noticed it last year with Atlanta United 2 especially, and I think Scott Donnelly, Atlanta United 2's manager last year, and his staff has to get a lot of credit, Rob Valentino, because Miles went from a player that would make the simple pass or would just clear it to a player that was comfortable looking for teammates, not just the closest one, but skipping lines, breaking pressure. He started to do that with Atlanta United too. This year, even more consistent in doing it and taking it to the next step. A player who is comfortable taking a touch and playing himself on the ball forward. Instead of just getting rid of it, he'll carry it a little bit. Just when you look at the numbers on Miles this season, he's second in passes per game for this team. Leandro Gonzalez-Perez leads the team. Robinson is second. So the team is comfortable with him on the ball. He's seeing a lot of it. He's good there. He's not like LGP in that he will play a lot of long balls. LGP is one of the best in the league since he joined it in playing those long passes, those long diagonals to open the field up. That's not really in Miles's locker. He's not going to play that. He's far more likely to play the pass to split the midfielders who are pressuring and get Nagbe on the ball in a good spot, or pick out Barco in a good spot, or pick out Joseph when he drops in to win possession. That's where Robinson has started to excel, and I think he'd be a good fit for a Greg Berhalter team that isn't really looking to be all that direct. He wants them to build up play, and Robinson's a player who's comfortable in doing that. His athleticism helps him too, because he's able now, and I think he's got the comfort level to take a touch and rely on his quickness, on his speed, to get there and make a play. He started to find ways that he can break pressure, and that's the most impressive part of his development. The 1v1 defending, always there. The ability in the air, always been there. Now, on the ball, he's an asset.
Daniel Price, when going over the awards, said, I'd have to say most of it's pretty close to what I'd guess, although Frank DeBoer might be giving a good run for Coach of the Year lately. Only one I would flip would be Gazan. I think he probably is number one. I especially think so if he can grab a few more clean sheets.
Yeah, I think Brad, with getting there into that clean sheet record-setting number, it's hard to go against him. In terms of just ridiculousness at times as a goalkeeper, it's Maxime Crépeau. But Crépeau's had to do that because he's had a lot of practice doing that, because Vancouver's been bad.
And then he also comes in and says, I know NFL is king in the United States, but how much of that is skewed by the over 40 demographic? I know a majority of people I know in my age range do not follow the National Football League as much as they did, or if at all. Their primary focus is college ball and then soccer, #Thursday Thoughts.
That could be skewed a little bit about where we are. College is far more just, I think, in your face in the South than it is in other parts of the country. So that's part of it in terms of what we see on a regular basis. The NFL is just the biggest, most all-consuming league in the country. It is, and that's fine. It's not going anywhere right now anyway. I think overall, when you look at the health of football, injuries are going to be a major issue. They are. You're seeing, and there's nothing that football people can argue about here, you're seeing decreased participation numbers. It's just a fact. You're not seeing as many kids playing football at younger ages because of safety concerns. Those kids are playing soccer. They're playing basketball. It's a big opportunity for Major League Soccer to grab the next generation. And MLS and the NBA have been very good at grabbing the young sports fan. Baseball is even worse than the NFL when you talk about the average age. Baseball is an old man's game. And it's a shame. I grew up on baseball. But it's just, I think it's lost the next generation. Football still has it. Football still reaches young and old. NBA reaches younger and old. MLS reaches young, for the most part. And that's a good potential source of growth. And I think that's why you've seen Major League Soccer just steadily grow. But yeah, you're going to get the comments out of some sports writers and editors and people, and it's just going to happen, and that's okay. It's their opinion. It's wrong, but it's their opinion, and they're going to be the ones who look foolish down the line when things consistently continue to change. I think this is why when you look at MLS as a whole and you look at the growth of the league, you do have to give a lot of credit to Don Garber, because this league has grown steadily. And that was the right approach. Trying to do the old North American Soccer League, let's go sign a bunch of big names at the end of their career, and that will make soccer legitimate in this country. It didn't work. It's not going to work. You have to grow steadily. You have to create fans out of the youth. And you have to be involved in your communities. And that's what this league has done consistently over the last decade for sure, maybe 15 years. Where now you've got kids who have grown up as a DC United fan, for example, or an FC Dallas fan or an LA Galaxy fan. And they think of their team just like kids think about the Falcons or the Braves, because they've grown up with it. Over time, that's going to have a huge impact. And when football drops off, and baseball's already dropped off, I really do think that in time it will be the NBA and Major League Soccer that are the two dominant sports leagues in this country. The NFL is going to maintain a huge grip on the sports business for a long time. But the safety concerns when it comes to American football are something that they're going to have to address, and I don't know how they do it, and keep the game, the selling points of the game as they are. I just don't know what the future holds. I really don't, because there's too much sticking their head in the sand when it comes to the health issues. And that's going to come back to bite them at some point. It might not bite the current leadership, and it might not bite people that it would affect in this lifetime. But boxing was one of the most important sports in this country for a long time, and now it feels like an afterthought.
Yeah,
football could be that because of the health concerns.
So, I mean, when you go,
but yes.
Yeah. No, I mean, when we go and we travel around, and, when you travel the country, and when I'm in a car and you're in a plane, and we go to a bunch of different towns. I mean, you go to all the cities in MLS, and I go to small towns, and I go to Statesboro, and I see kids below the age of 15, 16. They're wearing Tormenta stuff. They're not wearing Georgia Southern stuff. Not to say that it's not in their closets, but you see a lot more folks wearing Tormenta stuff, and even away from Statesboro. You see, I've been to small towns here in the state of Georgia, and I see kids under the age of 16 wearing Atlanta United stuff in their schools. And these are small towns that have had attachments to college football and pro football, and it doesn't really matter what other sports are, baseball in the past. And you're seeing more and more kids wearing soccer kits. whether it's Atlanta United, whether it's Tormenta, whether it's Red Wolves, whether it's Greenville Triumph, whether it's GVLFC or pick your team. And I think that once again, you're seeing the younger demographics and their parents being drawn to soccer more than they are the other sports. Yes, because of health issues, but also because of how these franchises and how these clubs and how these teams embrace the local community. And I think that that's just a part of this whole thing. And if with a World Cup coming and the United States wanting to host both in 2026 and 2027, if you're not catching on now, when you catch on, it's going to be too late, and you're going to be way behind the curve when it comes to trying to get folks interested in what you're trying to say about it or what your product is and how you're trying to tie yourself into it as a community or as an individual.
When these teams continue to exist, I mean, as simple as that, and you have kids grow up watching Atlanta United, Tormenta, Greenville, Red Wolves, Chattanooga FC, all of it, and they grow up with heroes and heroines as well, because that's also going to be a factor going forward. Is that's something that soccer has, I think, more so than even basketball in terms of the potential growth of the women's professional game, and heroines as well as heroes for kids growing up. When I was a kid, you had Dale Murphy, you had Herschel Walker, you had Steve Bartkowski, you had Dominique Wilkins.
Yeah, I still have my photos of all those things.
You didn't have soccer heroes easily accessible. Now kids do, and it's just so much easier to follow it and be into it and go buy a jersey and go play a FIFA video game with your favorite player and stuff like that. So it's only going to continue to grow. The rate of growth will be the interesting conversation going forward. And I also think on the flip side, the rate of decline of a Major League Baseball and an NFL and just football in general over a long period of time, it's going to be fascinating to see. I think there's a lot of potential for MLS. I think the NBA is realizing that potential right now. And as we've seen, honestly, since the last season ended, the NBA has really figured out how to maximize the news cycle and get the most out of the conversation around it. They've done a great job with that. MLS needs to learn from some of the things the NBA has done. You know, transfer windows need to be a bigger deal. Trade windows, trade deadlines, all that kind of stuff needs to be big because it drives a lot of the conversation. Free agency needs to be bigger because it drives conversation. Those things, Major League Soccer can learn a lot from the NBA, and I hope they do, because I think those are the two leagues that have the most potential going forward. Let's take a quick break and come back and get more into your Thursday thoughts along with some news nuggets right after this.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinsky of Apolinsky and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
Welcome back, SDH, August 29th, Thursday Thoughts. I believe there are lots of thoughts floating around in the SDH universe.
Yes, we have people thinking. And I guess what we'll do is, since I buzzed past it and stopped, the Soccer for Good OG, Jill Robbins, has a crowdsource solution. So I'm putting this out here. Okay. And she says, thanks in advance, SDH Nation. She is caught in the @Dish at Fox Sports South idiocy. She can't quit Dish, so she needs a temporary solution to catch Atlanta United games. She has Roku and @ESPN, but has to deal with the local blackouts. What additional stream service makes sense?
Ooh, and that I don't know. That is going to be one for the SDH Nation. I don't know what, like, YouTube TV or Sling or something like that. I don't know which one of those have the local Fox regional channels, because that's what you're going to need for this weekend, for example, with Fox Sports South and Fox Sports Southeast. So please advise, SDH Nation.
Yes, please advise. Just figured I would put that one out there. As a public service, Tafka has posted the Chris Bermudez ridiculous goal last night from Greenville Triumph and Forward Madison, which kept the record crowd in Madison from being a full Mingo zone. It was a no Mingo zone, as Greenville ended up winning 1-0. But if you have not seen the Bermudez goal, it's pretty ridiculous.
I'll have to check that out. I have not seen it yet.
Yes. Ricky Ricardo. Isn't it wild that we could potentially have two players, as of now, playing for their nations in the Olympics with Barco and Miles? This club is still in its infancy and keeps making huge strides. #Thursday Thoughts.
Yeah, it's a big deal. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily rule out a George Bello from being in that conversation either. Bello's been called into the US U17s. Depending on what the left back depth looks like at the U23 level, you could see a Bello potentially jump in next year if he's playing with Atlanta United. It's going to create some interesting conversations because the Olympics are not FIFA mandated that players have to be released. And if you probably one of the most high profile situations with this was 2008 with Lionel Messi, who wanted to play for Argentina in the Olympics, and Barcelona didn't want to let him play as he was just starting to become the guy for Barca. And it was the first year that Pep Guardiola was taking over, and Pep realized that, you know what, it's going to be the best thing for Messi. It's going to be the best thing for me to earn his trust, and it's going to be the best thing for the club as a whole, maybe not in the short term, because I think they had Champions League qualifiers that they were going to miss him for. It was the best thing all the way around to let Messi go and play in that, and he did, and they won a gold medal. And that's what Pep told him before he left. He's like, look, if you're going to go do this, you have to win. You have to go win the gold and bring it back to Barcelona. And he did. So for Miles, for Barco, two guys who are key parts of Atlanta United, that's going to be tricky in 2020, depending on if their countries get into the Olympics, and both are favored to do so, and what kind of depth Atlanta United has at that time. It could create an interesting situation.
Early returns for Jill Robbins' question. Tafka, Sling is a Dish property. It lost the Fox regional channels as well.
Okay.
Chris Ashley, who I will be catching up with for his weekly visit for Greenville Triumph Weekly, says he has AT&T TV now and gets all the regional Fox channels. Of course, the other cheaper solution is going to a watch party. And the garlic bread, the garlic bread warlord says YouTube TV, Hulu, and Fubo should have local Fox Sports channels. And seconding what Tafka said, Sling does not have the regional Fox channels.
Got it.
And sidebar, it was good to catch up with Kevin Egan at the U.S. Open Cup final. It'd be good to hear Kevin, Dan, and Jillian from Chester, PA, for those of you who wish to watch on the TV side as well.
Yeah, it's been a while. They've been
7 weeks
busy with other things, and there's been a lot of national TV games, so it'll be good to hear the guys. Good to see them.
And Chris Ashley gives a heads up for the prize picks segment. He says, currently Rooney and Vela both options to be picked this week, with Rooney suspended, Vela possibly out or limited, and valued at 13. Feels like a pretty good 2-pick on the unders.
Well, no, because if they don't start, that pick gets nullified. So that's one thing to keep in mind here. The board will probably be cleaned up a little bit. So
cleaned up as we get closer to the matches. Yeah. Stephen Goff has posted a story, and Ricky Ricardo has a question with it. DC United close to deal to reacquire Yamil Assad in the Washington Post. So Ricky Ricardo asks, is this enough to save DC this year?
Nope. Not at all. Not even close. Yamil Assad's played 18 minutes since last MLS season ended for DC United. He's not walking into any team and playing at anything remotely resembling 100% until next year. So, no, it would have zero effect on DC this year, I think. Or limited, let's say.
Jorge B. wants to know where Frank DeBoer for Coach of the Year conversation is. He says, where's FDB for Coach of the Year conversation? He had to deal with injuries. The defense is one of the best in the league, and he just won 2 trophies. And he finishes it up with the chin-rubbing emoji.
I would put him at 3 right now just because what Matias Almeida has done with San Jose, with a roster that I didn't think was all that great. And, yeah, he's been able to make a few additions. But pretty much the team last year that was really bad is still the same team, and he's changed it. Now, how they finish will be the key part of that. Bob Bradley, it's going to be really hard for him not to win Coach of the Year if LAFC finishes the way that they're expected to. I mean, if they set a new points record, if they are that far out ahead of everybody, you almost have to give it to him. But Frank DeBoer will be in the top 3 and potentially second, depending on how things finish with Almeida. It's just, I did not expect San Jose to be a playoff team this year, let alone a team that at times has looked like a contender to be one of the best in the West.
Yeah. Did not anticipate this at all. I know that when we were doing all of our preseason stuff that we had them below the playoff bar along with Colorado and Cincinnati and a couple of other teams. But what Matias Almeida has done with players that are not his own and having a full roster that has been carved in the way that he wants it carved, for him to be able to do what he's been able to do, for me, it's been nothing short of amazing. And it just once again reinforces the kind of coach that Matias Almeida is.
Yeah, he has to be in that conversation.
Jorge B. once again says, it's sad to me that it feels like we're defending our team in the sport from bitter local riders instead of celebrating a major championship, not only for the team, but for the city.
Yeah, they've been defended. You don't have to worry about it. It's not something that needs to continue. If people still want to try to draw attention to themselves at this stage after they've been pretty strongly rebuked across the board, don't waste your breath. Don't waste your time. There's only so much you can do. I generally don't like to respond to those sorts of things, but I thought this one was exceptionally out of line and misinformed, and needed to be said. So I said my piece and left it at that, and I'm not going to worry about it anymore. I think there's plenty for said writer to write about with their beat it's a very intriguing upcoming season for the Atlanta Falcons, and there's a lot of storylines to dig into. He should probably focus on that as opposed to another sport and another team and something that he obviously knows zero about.
Chris Kilroy looking after this season to the Atlanta United roster, and he says changes to the MLS collective bargaining is a huge wild card, so we don't know how much more room in salary cap we will have. But he thinks Tito's gone. Too good and injury prone to be our fourth highest paid player and barely play. Hope he stays, though, at Soccer Down Here.
One day I'm going to teach you to go back to the first tweet in the thread and read that first, because that was a response.
Okay. So then the first tweet says, to you, with a CCL slot locked in, is it too early to ask your thoughts on what you see happening in the winter trade window for Atlanta United? Do Nagbe and Gressel get re-signed? Do we trade Tito so he can be a starter elsewhere? Does Miles go to Europe? New acquisitions? And then proceed with what I read from Chris Kilroy.
It's too early. It's way too early. And Chris is right when you dig into what the CBA could do. Yeah, there's no way to truly know. Tito could stay or be back. Gressel could stay or be back. Nagbe could stay or be back. LGP, I think, has an option coming up. Could stay or be back. There's a lot of questions. I don't think Miles goes to Europe yet. I don't think you've maximized the value yet. For Miles, the biggest money move he can make would be to England, and he's not going to get a work permit right now, so it'd be best for him to wait. And I think also it'd be best for him to really examine what has happened to other players who have made this move and their playing time or lack thereof with the clubs that brought them in. And Matt Miazga is a prime example. So don't repeat that. Go somewhere where you're going to play, and if you're not going to play at that club, then wait it out and wait till you get a better offer. And that's where I think Atlanta United is in a position that players want to be here and would be happy to wait it out until the right offer comes, if that's what they're looking to do. So I don't think Miles goes to Europe yet. In terms of players back or going, it is way too early, and without knowing where the CBA is going to fall, there's way too many unknown factors. I do think you will see player roster turnover potentially in a more impactful way than we've seen in the past, but it's just so hard to tell. And the main reason I think that is because it's year 3. You've had a lot of continuity from year 1 through year 3. Contracts coming up soon, either going into option years or going into final years. That's where you start to see movement, either with re-signings, new salaries, more salaries being paid out, or moves being made on transfers. So I think it'll happen. It's just way too early to know with who and how many.
And I would also think that with everything going on politically, and this is the political science major in me, that with everything going on in England right now, Brexit, no Brexit, exit, no exit, small exit, prolonged exit, when it comes to wanting to go to England with so much influx politically between Britain and the EU, this may not be the time to jump, even if you were thinking about doing it with so many things in flux politically right now.
Yeah, but when it comes to Miles, he can't do it because he's not getting a work permit, so it's not even a valid option right now.
I was just speaking in general.
I understand.
In addition to Miles.
Yeah, but nobody else is going to England. Like LGP, Gressel, Tito, Nagbe, the ones we've talked about, I don't see them going to England. Miles specifically would be the one that he could play, and England, his style of play, matches what could happen in the Premier League. It's just he can't get a work permit because he hasn't played for the national team yet. Maybe at the end of next season, then it's a different conversation. But I don't see that happening right now, and I don't know if there's a club on the continent that would have the money to pay to make it worthwhile. I think it's too early for Miles at this point.
Back to our discussion about the reach of soccer and how it's taking over and in place of, in addition to other sports like American football, baseball, and the like. Daniel Price says he went on a cruise for their honeymoon, saw kits being worn from around MLS, like Montreal and Sporting Kansas City, just on a cruise. He says it's amazing to see.
That's the stuff that needs to continue to happen. I mean, in Atlanta, we see Atlanta United stuff everywhere. In other markets, you've got to see the local team represented. And then bigger picture, you've got to see the league be big enough to get past what I think Major League Baseball struggles with right now, in that, you know, if you have the playoffs coming up, if your team's not in it, are you going to watch? Probably not. MLS needs to get to the point that El Tráfico is, oh my God, I have to watch this game. I'm an Atlanta United fan, but I have to watch this. And it's not there yet. And I think some of that's down to just the league storytelling. Some of that's down to connecting the stories of the league in local markets beyond just the local team storylines. Some of that's down to the lack of, at times, respectful coverage. Sometimes just coverage, period, on an ESPN, for example. ESPN still sets a lot of the agenda when it comes to sports conversation. It's a fact. And when they don't talk about you, you do kind of get lost in the shuffle at times. The National Hockey League can attest to that. So that, for me, is one of the biggest things Major League Soccer has to find a way to do. Make big games, regardless of if your local team's in it. For example, the Hudson River Derby. Ratings were not good. For the New York teams this season, ratings have not been good in the national broadcasts. Why is that? NYC is a good team to watch. Red Bulls it's an entertaining watch to watch a Red Bulls game. It's chaotic. Why are those stories not being transmitted properly? Why are people not gravitating towards it? These are questions Major League Soccer has to try to answer and try to figure out. I think they're very important going forward, because while Atlanta United moves the needle, while I think the LA Galaxy still move the needle in a big way nationally, while superstars move the needle nationally, big matches don't always do that, and the league has to find a way to market that better.
Couple of more thoughts, and then we will be officially caught up on Twitter. So for the final 20 minutes, if you've got a Thursday thought, let us know what is going on in your thoughts on a Thursday. Therefore, it's a Thursday thought. Use the hashtag. Ricky Ricardo wants to know, why does the conversation around Brad Guzan being the goalkeeper of the year seem kind of negative? The man leads the league with double-digit clean sheets, yet is criminally underrated. I really don't get it.
I don't either. It's the same stuff that Brad Guzan played on some really bad teams in England. And no, he didn't look good because he played on bad teams with horrible defenses in front of him. And people remember that. And they hold that against him for some reason. It's unfair. Just like people I thought were unfair towards Frank de Boer at the beginning. Sometimes when a narrative gets made and gets traction, it just continues, even when the results in front of you show otherwise. I think Brad has been the perfect fit for this team because his distribution is good. He's comfortable with the ball at his feet. Even his throws and punts have been good. This team would not be as effective without that type of goalkeeper. And I think also his veteran experience is big because the way this team plays, you don't give up a lot of shots. Like your goalkeeper's not under fire. You know, I don't know if a Bill Hamid would thrive in this type of system because I don't think his distribution's good enough. And I think he's a goalkeeper who he makes a big save, then he makes another big save and another big save, and he's feeding off of it. With Atlanta, he might only have one big save to make. And is he going to stay focused and sharp to make that big save when the time comes? Veterans and a guy like Brad who's steady, I think it's the perfect type of goalkeeper for this team. And I don't know why he doesn't get the respect that he deserves. I thought he really deserved to be next in line as Tim Howard's career came to a close, and it felt like Brad kind of got jumped. And Zach Steffen's really, really good. But I don't know if Zach Steffen is the just end-all, be-all when it comes to this. I don't think that's necessarily fair to Brad Guzan. I think he deserves every opportunity to win that number one shirt for the U.S. national team.
Prize Picks sidebar, Daniel says he's going to make his picks tomorrow. And he has also noticed, though, that PT made the board this week for the first time at a 4.5. Considering how many shots he makes, that might not be a bad one to look at with a triple chin rub emoji to follow.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's take a quick break. Final one of the day. If you've got final Thursday thoughts to throw at us, please do so on Twitter at Soccer Down Here. We'll be right back after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Final segment, Soccer Down Here, August 29th, Thursday Thoughts edition of the show. We have talked Major League Soccer awards. We have talked about the best 11. We've still talked about certain sports writers who are a little clueless. Lots of things. We've gotten into quite a few different things this morning. One thing we haven't gotten into that was pretty interesting over at MLSsoccer.com, Josef Martinez, right now, since MLS began play in 1996, we know that Josef's consecutive games scoring record is the best in league history, with 12. What I didn't know is that since the league launched in 96, this is tied for the third longest goal-scoring streak in the world. Like, not kidding, in the world. Lionel Messi has that. He scored in 21 straight games, which is insanity. I don't know if Joseph's going to pull that one off. But scoring in Orlando pulled him level with Robert Lewandowski. He did this over 2012, 2013 with Borussia Dortmund. There is one player between Josef and Lionel Messi, Tor Henrik Hamre. He did this in 2003 in Estonia. Scored in 15
Of course
straight
he
games.
did.
Yes. Norwegian forward who scored in 15 straight league games for Estonian club Flora Tallinn in 2003. That's insanity that Josef Martinez in this record is at that kind of level. With his 12th straight game getting a goal, he passed Jamie Vardy, who scored in 11 straight with Leicester, Gabriel Batistuta, who scored in 11 straight, this is even before MLS, in 1994-95. Jose Cardozo, who scored in 11 straight with Toluca in 2002-2003. And Ara Hakobian, who scored in 11 straight in the Armenian League in 2003.
Yes, because of course. You know, to have Josef in the same conversation with Flora Tallinn in Estonia, I mean, that is a conversation I never thought we were going to have.
No, I did not expect that at all.
Let's see. A couple of thoughts. And Daniel, I'm not so sure about this. He says, at least we have one guarantee. Joseph ain't going anywhere unless we're offered stupid, in all caps, money.
Yeah, I think so. All right, we have a little bit of a report here. Actually, this might need the bell. Felipe Cardenas, after leaving us, he tweets this. Another muscle injury. This time it's Barco. He won't travel to Philadelphia. So I would assume he does not make the trip to join Argentina's U23s either. Came out in around the 60th minute in the Open Cup final. Yeah. Didn't notice anything then, so I don't know if it's truly significant. Could be a little bit more of a, you know what, it doesn't feel quite right. There's been a lot of games. Let's skip this one. So we'll find out, and Frank de Boer will speak to the media here in a little bit. But Barco not traveling to Philadelphia.
Joe Bost. Good morning, guys. He says, work is killing me, so I listen, but not much tweeting. And I don't know which emoji this is. It's just the one that's got the very straight blank face on it. Back to the best 11. In all the midfielders, at Longshoe had no mention of our best unsung hero, Nagbe, as part of the best 11.
Yeah, I think he's just a step below. And it's not a knock on Darlington Nagbe at all. I just think there's been others who have been a little more important to their teams and just a little bit better this season. But Darlington's right there in that conversation, as he pretty much always is. Gregush, for me, has been the best holding midfielder in the league this season. Edward Atuesta should be in that conversation as well. I almost feel like maybe Atuesta might push his way into this conversation in the best 11. He's been really good throughout the year for LAFC. He just gets lost in the shuffle with Rossi and Vela doing what they do. That's a good thing about the league, and it's maybe the spot and the position that has upgraded the most because of TAM, is in the holding midfield. When you think back to previous years and what you had in the central midfield outside of, number 10s, outside of playmakers that were big investments, you didn't have as much. And now you've got, and Osvaldo Alonso has been in the league for a long time, but you have Alexander Ring, you have Jan Gregush, you have Edward Atuesta, you have Mark Anthony Kaye, who's become one of those central midfielders, you have Darlington Nagbe, you have Eric Remedi. You have a number of players who have upgraded that position, maybe more so than any other in the last couple of years in Major League Soccer.
Kefzi, how much of a missed opportunity do you think Minnesota and Orlando feel the 2017 Super Draft was to see Miles and Julian doing so well in Atlanta? # Thursday Thought.
It's hard. Most people thought Julian was a reach at 7. He was projected by a lot of people to be in the 15 range. So that was one that not many people expected at all. Miles, people had high hopes on. But also people had high hopes on other players in that draft. It wasn't like there was no real clear-cut options. There was a lot of discussion going into the Super Draft that year as to what direction you would go. And Atlanta was in a great spot to take Miles because they didn't need him to play right away. It wasn't something that you're picking him to eat up minutes in year one. Abu Danladi went number 1 to Minnesota. Danladi was seen as a player who was maybe the most ready to play, although there were injury concerns and there was inconsistency issues, and I think we've still seen that with him. It wasn't a bad pick to go with him at number 1. But Miles was 2. Look at the rest of this draft, by the way. Jonathan Lewis at 3 for NYC, and they've moved him on to Colorado because there wasn't a spot for him to play at NYC. Player who has picked up national team minutes. So, good number 3 pick. Good number 4 pick, Jeremy Abobasi with the Portland Timbers. Good number 5 pick with Columbus, who now moved him to Colorado, and I'm a little surprised that they moved him. I thought he had a good year last year in Lalas Abubakar. Another good player. He's played a lot of minutes in Major League Soccer. A good number 6 pick, Jackson Ewell, who's just called into the U.S. men's national team with San Jose. Took him a minute to break through, but Jackson Ewell, good pick. Can't really argue with that. Jacob Nerwinski, number 7 for Vancouver. Player's played a lot of minutes for Vancouver. I think he's a very good right back and potentially in the mix with a national team conversation. He's just played on bad Vancouver teams. Gressel was 8. That was the one you got from Orlando for Donnie Toya, which I think Orlando would love to have that back. Although at the time, you had no idea what number 8 pick was going to turn into. Now, beyond that, okay, that's where the draft falls off. Nico Hansen was traded from Columbus recently. I think he's a good player, but don't know if he's a starter in this league. Scrolling through past that, guys who have played in the league and been successful. Ja'Cory Hayes with Dallas, they got him at 18. He fell down because people didn't know what his position would end up being at the next level. It's been pretty good for them. And that's about it out of the first round. It was the first 9, and then you throw Hayes into the mix, 10 guys that have contributed. That's about where you're looking these days with the draft. There's players that were drafted after that we've seen in USL Championship a good bit. Zako Lewis was picked number 17 by the Red Bulls, didn't stick. Marcus Epps, who we just saw last night with Memphis 901, picked by Philadelphia. He's still on the books in MLS, but was recently loaned to Memphis. I don't know. I don't know if anybody ahead of where Atlanta picked at 8 when they acquired that trade from Orlando. I don't know if there's anybody there that you would say really blew it on their pick. Abu Danladi, Miles Robinson was one of the big discussions going into that. I understand why Minnesota went with Danladi, and I understand why Atlanta picked Robinson there ahead of what was left. Gressel was a reach that worked out at the time because he just wasn't seen as a top 10 pick.
So here's one for you at 77. Philadelphia got Jack Elliott in round 4.
And that's what happens occasionally is you find a guy like late that it's, okay, you're picking a project, you're picking a guy that just maybe didn't play as much in college, maybe played a different position, you see him in a different way, and those seems like once a year, maybe twice a year, pop up. Jack Elliott, that's one of the best late-round picks in MLS Super Draft history.
And you're looking, and I'm scanning through. You see Bronico at 47 going to Chicago in round 3. You've got at the end of round 2, Dominic Aduro to Seattle. Shamit Shom goes to Montreal at 41.
That's a different Dominic Aduro.
Okay, so then Shamit Shom at 41.
Played. Yeah, Shom's a good one. Who's started to play a little bit now.
And then, like I said, the guys that we've seen in the USL Championship. But yeah, when I was scanning down the list and I saw Elliott at 77, I was like, wow.
I mean, these were the conversation about the top potential picks going into the college season in 2016. Dunladi, who was Ian Harkes, who signed a homegrown deal with DC and then didn't get his contract renewed and went to Scotland. Jackson Ewell, Grant Lillard, who signed a homegrown deal with Chicago. Those were the 4 top players in college going into the 2016 season. Gressel wasn't part of that conversation at all.
Then a couple, let's see, Tofka says the 2017 Super Draft was the strongest draft in years.
Yeah,
easily.
I think it was. I mean, there's just not many others that compare to it at all when you start to dig into it, because you did have those late round hits too to factor in. But you look at 2016, for example, Jack Harrison obviously worked out. Chicago picked him. He went to NYC on draft day. Philadelphia took Josh Yarrow second, who had injury issues and never panned out. Keegan Rosenberry, good pick at number 3. Brandon Vincent at number 4 was good, retired, so he's out of the league now. 5 was Omar Holness to Real Salt Lake, didn't really contribute there at all. Fabian Erbers with Philadelphia at 6, played some. Orlando picked Richie Larea at 7, moved him on to Toronto. He's played a fair bit. San Jose with Andrew Tarbell at 8 has been a backup. Number 9, Toronto, Tsubasa Endo. They let him go. They brought him back. 10, Jordan McCrary has bounced around the league a little bit and played a fair bit. But no real impact players outside of Harrison and maybe Rosenberry. And neither one are with the teams who drafted them now, or in Harrison's case, who he ended draft day with. So that's the year before 2017, and you want to look at 2018 and what that's turned into. And, yeah, as we've seen with Miles Robinson, sometimes it takes a little bit longer, but 2018 it was Joao Moutinho, number 1. LAFC gave up on him after a year and moved him to Orlando. Tomas Hilliard Arce with LA Galaxy, we haven't seen him. Tristan Blackman with LAFC has been a reserve. Francis Atuahene with Dallas, haven't seen him. John Baquero with Chicago, they moved him on pretty quickly. He's in the USL Championship now. Chris Mueller at 6 for Orlando, really good pick. Mason Toy, number 7 for Minnesota, really good pick. Brandon Bai for New England at number 8, really good pick. Mark Segbers with New England at 9. He's playing in USL Championship now. Mo Adams at 10, now here. I think that could end up being a good pick, but not for Chicago because they didn't really get much out of it. And then you're scrolling down. John Gallagher at 14. We'll see if Atlanta gets a transfer fee out of that potentially. That could end up being nice. Brian White at 16. Good pick for the Red Bulls. Alex Roldan for Seattle has played a good bit at 22. Carter Manley played some for Minnesota at 23. That's about it. The 2018 draft does not look like it's going to be anywhere near as good as 2017 was.
And one last thought on the Twitters from Daniel. He says the fact that Joseph is that close to names like Lionel Messi's insane. The man wants to play here in Atlanta. He's a national treasure. We're blessed that he loves it here and wants to be here.
Yeah, I mean, the comments that Joseph had about Atlanta on Tuesday with the Open Cup final, and he should probably crushing Bud Lights after the win, because he had some other comments too. That
Slip and slide.
Epic. Yeah, there was lots of things happening after that one. Joseph said some really cool things about the city and how much he likes it here. And I want to pull those up real quick to capture them correctly if I can work the Twitter search the best. Let me grab it. And I am not grabbing it correctly. So you look for it, and I'll ramble on and try to fill time while you find it. I'm trusting you.
You go ramble and do your thing.
Okay. Joseph is a unique, I think, just individual, let alone a unique athlete. And I think his time in Europe really makes it to where it would have to be a mega club for him to consider going. You know, I mean, he went to Switzerland first, and it went okay. It went fairly well. And then he moved to Italy, and it just didn't work out. He also wasn't playing in the position that he is now, and I think we've all figured out that he is a true number 9 and a striker that needs to be in that role, and that's where you're going to get the best out of him. I don't think he feels like he has to go to Europe to validate his ability and validate his career. Some players do. Some players feel like they have to do that. I don't think Joseph does. I think Joseph is honestly more along the lines of a Landon Donovan in that he wants to play where he enjoys the game, where he enjoys his surroundings, where he is comfortable and happy, and that's how you're going to get the best out of him. And for a Venezuelan national team where Joseph could be, and honestly, in my opinion, should be, one of the key factors that gets them to their first World Cup ever, you want him to be happy and comfortable, and in a place like Atlanta where you're getting the best soccer that Joseph Martinez has ever produced.
Playing in this stadium is a dream, and he did this through Justin. Every time I drive here, I get goosebumps. For me, playing here is the best thing that's happened to me. I have to thank the fans. I love the people here. For me, this is the best stadium in the world. For me, the best city. Every time I walk in the street, the people treat me with a lot of affection, and you can't buy that. I always say it, you can't buy that. I'm not leaving here until my time is up. But the affection the people show me, this team, I don't think this city has another team. We're the only team winning, and everyone has to respect us. We're the champions here, and we need a little bit more respect.
It's funny you said that before someone started popping off on Twitter yesterday. So, maybe Joseph was looking into the future with those last statements. It's very cool to hear a player say that about the city and how much he enjoys it here. And I think it's pretty obvious from his actions and his comments that Joseph Martinez is very happy in Atlanta. And, you look back through the history of professional sports in Atlanta, there's just not anybody to compare Joseph Martinez to. And, yeah, it's year 3 that he's been here, but when you look at the list of Atlanta professional sports greats, and I'm being very specific to say professional, we're not talking college, Joseph Martinez has to be near the top of that list already. And in time, he very well could be at the top of that list. And that's pretty cool to see with a guy who came here with question marks, with maybe a little bit of a side eye, like, okay, well, what is he going to be? Where is he going to play? You signed Kenwin Jones. Where's Joseph going to be? What's he going to do? Is he going to play out wide? And now to be what he is with the goal-scoring feats, with the trophies, with the championships, with the international acclaim, I don't think there's anybody you can compare him to in Atlanta sports history. And at the end of his time in Atlanta, he might be at the top of the mountain when it comes to professional athletes in the city's history.
And when you think about athletes, professional athletes, you're talking Hank Aaron, Dominique Wilkins, that kind of stuff. And that was done over a long career. And for Joseph to have done this in 3 seasons is nothing short of amazing.
Pretty cool, pretty special. We'll talk about Joseph, and we'll talk about Atlanta United as they prepare for the Philadelphia Union. We'll get into all of that tomorrow. It sounds like Franco Escobar is not going to be available to start in the match in Philadelphia. Don't know if we have anything further than that. That's from our friend Doug Robertson, who will be joining us tomorrow. Doug tweeted he likely won't start. I would assume that means he will make the trip and he'd be available in the 18. Ezequiel Barco not making the trip to Philadelphia. Be on the lookout for more updates as the team and Frank DeBoer speak to the media with all of our usual friends at the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta Training Ground this morning. Follow them on Twitter. Make sure you're keeping up with what's going on. We'll break all of it down tomorrow morning starting at 9 o'clock on a weekend preview edition of SDH. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Thanks, everybody, for contributing Thursday thoughts. Talk to y'all tomorrow. Mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha plata.